I do apologize. This chair has gotten squeakier over the semester, so I'll probably have to bring in some WD 40 or something to make it better. I apologize for the creaking. But we're talking about the scene where the Martins and the Smiths hear somebody at the door, right? The doorbell goes and they decide somebody's at the door. And after, right, two attempts at answering the door and there being no one there, then the question becomes then, well, if somebody knocks the door, somebody is there. That is the logic that everybody has been going by for their entire lives, right? That makes sense, right? If somebody knocks at the door, then you hear the doorbell go, somebody's at the door. But based on the observations that they're making, when somebody knocks at the door, there's never anyone there because those two times, right, nobody has been there. And within this universe, again, if we seal this into a tight universe, we may assume that in this particular universe, that we don't know who's knocked at the door before, who has not knocked at the door, but we can see them making arguments for both of these cases, right? And in our video, that takes place. That discussion takes place at around let's see here, around 36 minutes in, right? 36 minutes in when the doorbell shenanigans start. And so the first two times nobody's there. The third time, right, they agree not to go to the door, right? They say because there's nobody there, right? And somebody goes and triumphantly says, right, see, there's nobody there at the door. And then the fourth time, right, there is very much an argument about whether or not to go to the door. 3 times now, nobody has been there when the doorbell has gone, and so there cannot possibly be anyone there. And even we, as an audience, may be taken in at this point in time that nobody's going to be there because nobody's ever at the door, right? We begin to ourselves believe that in this universe, we have a reason to believe that when the doorbell rings, nobody's there, right? And yet that fourth time somebody is there. It happens to be the firefighter, right? And the firefighter does agree, right? The first 2 times he did not ring the doorbell. He was not there, right? He was waiting there. He didn't see anybody. But the third time he rang the doorbell and then hid because he wanted to have a joke, right? And so we are left with this inconclusive evidence about who was at the door, right? This play turns us into people who are able to debate language, to debate reality. It makes us believe and use language in a way that maybe we didn't think we would, right? This is one of the reasons, again, why I found this play to be such a revelation for me as somebody who enjoys the theater. That being able to see how this play operated, being able to see sort of why this play did the things that it did, was really helpful for me. Now, I saw this play first, as I may have said much earlier in the semester, in France, in the Théâtre de la Huchette, where it was, first of all, based and where it played for years, right? Are they still playing there? I couldn't tell you anymore. I would assume that they probably still are playing in this same theater. And that, this play still does for us a lot when it comes to talking about language, when it comes to talking about humor. Now, what's funny about this play? I think that this play is funny. I think that there's a lot of humor in it, and I think it's because, primarily, we don't know what to expect. And the exasperation sometimes and the weirdness of the language itself, right, placed side by side where we don't think these two concepts should go together, right, is exactly what the absurd can be. Is it terrifying? I think it is, right? I think that we look at these people and we say, right, we are having a great time as an audience. Likely, right? It's a fun time for us as an audience, sort of watching these people yell at each other and scream at each other, and there's a little bit of slapstick there, right? If you consider like getting up and going to the door and then sitting back down and getting up and going to the door and acting like a train at some point in time, right? That we do see the madcap nature of the theater of the absurd, but I think we also see how frightening it can be when we no longer have control over language, right? We're a little bit glad to be done with the play because at the end of the play, there is no need for staying in this universe where language doesn't work, right? We become maybe a little bit concerned that language is broken. Communication doesn't function anymore, right? We can't use language and we can't use our what we've always used to communicate because it no longer has a meaning for us, right? Sound, right? The way of communicating breaks. The doorbell no longer means that anybody's at the door, not consistently at least. And what we come to rely on in our lives, and what we realize that we've come to rely on in our lives, is language, is this idea that the sounds that we are making, the sounds coming out of our mouths, are going to get us the things we want. And that, even if we don't know any of a language, right, we can use gestures, right, to indicate the things that we need. And that even that seems like it's questionable in this particular play, right, that we're not sure anymore. The last thing that I will tell you is that, you may feel as if, right, we've watched this and now, right, we're good to go. We don't need to worry that much anymore. Maybe we don't need to read the play. I still want you to read it because there are parenthetical remarks. There are descriptions in the text itself, right, talking about the fact that this is an English night, an English clock strikes 12 English chimes, right? So Ionesco does a good deal of work trying to indicate that, this is, what the text indicates, right? And a lot of the parenthetical remarks that he makes in the text are nonsensical, right? It can't be an English evening or an English salon or an English clock or an English chime, right? Those things don't exist. Again, using language in an absurd way to undermine it, right? Now, learning this, right, and seeing this play, and knowing that it's based on the experience of, or a parody of, the way that a language can be learned, right? Should that concern us? Well, I think we have our fun, but I think it does make us take very seriously the nature of language. I think it does something for us to experience a play like this that's not so serious, right? But that can, through humor, right, remind us of how important language is and how fragile it can be. So, again, I love this play. I hope you enjoyed this play, and I hope that when you watch it, when you sort of look through it, that you sort of appreciate a little bit more, right, how humor and the absurd can come together, right? That we've had plays up to now that have been a little bit less fun, right? The Plague, ooh, lots of death. The No Exit, ooh, people already dead, people not getting along, right? Beckett, both plays he has, apocalyptic situation, and people are sad, and people can't communicate, and don't like each other, and everybody's depressed. Well, this, right, at least gives us a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a respite, but it also makes us question, right? It also still keeps us off balance. So there you go, right? That's kind of what I wanted to wrap up with this week. So next week we're going to be diving into Jean Genet. I am flipping the curriculum a little bit, so you will see some different things pop up than maybe you've expected. And if you have not yet gotten to me your ideas for the end of the semester, please do so. I do want to see those. So, see you soon.